On my wedding day, my twin sister knocked me out and locked me in the basement. She impersonated me and married my fiancé. From today on, your man belongs to me, she declared with determination. She was so focused on her plan that she didn't notice I had stopped breathing in the darkness. As I died, the wedding ceremony reached its peak. My fiancé Mike, holding my sister Lucy's hand, solemnly made vows. This was supposed to be my wedding, but now I could only hover above the wedding as a ghost, watching my sister, pretending to be me, marrying my beloved man. My gaze fell on Mike, handsome, tall with a cold demeanor that kept others at bay. Unexpectedly, as he said the 3 words "I do," his ears turned red. Meanwhile, my sister, wearing a snowy white wedding dress, gazed at him with shy adoration. It seemed like it was Lucy who had been in love with Mike all these years, not me, Nancy. I stood at the edge of the stage, watching them bathed in flowers and applause, making the most solemn promises for the future, while my lifeless body curled up in endless darkness, blood seeping beneath me like a withered flower. I thought my heart had hardened enough to withstand all worldly trials, but seeing them kiss each other made my heart ache unbearably. In a room full of joy and laughter, they were the center of attention, and I was the one left out. I turned away and tried to leave, but something forcefully pulled me back. It was then that I realized something was amiss. Normally, a soul would either fade away or be reincarnated after death. But here I was, dead, but still existing in this form. I refused to believe it and tried to float towards the door multiple times, only to end up feeling more pain and unable to reach any exit. I finally settled down in a deserted corner, waiting for death to come claim my soul. But instead of the Grim Reaper, it was my sister who dragged me into the dressing room. I watched her take off her white wedding dress and change into a bright red dress for toasting. Then, I followed her back to the wedding venue, where she linked arms with Mike, going from table to table, exchanging toasts with the guests. That's when I realized my sister had bound me even in death. She had messed up my life when I was alive, and now even in death, I couldn't escape her entanglements. I lowered my eyes, unsure whether to cry or laugh. Mike shielded Lucy from most of the alcohol, yet she drank a lot. Lucy had a good tolerance for alcohol, and had a few drinking bouts with me. But in front of Mike, I conveniently excused myself from alcohol, citing an allergy. Lucy, unaware of my trick, drank more than she should have. As the night wore on, Mike's frown deepened, but Lucy remained oblivious. After the wedding, Lucy dragged me into the bridal chamber. She put on the appearance of a virtuous wife and loving mother, fussing over Mike. I had to admit that the princess, who had never done any housework, acting all virtuous, felt out of place. Mike, with the smell of alcohol on him, went into the bathroom looking exhausted. Lucy followed him in, wanting to have a romantic bath together, only to be asked to leave by Mike. Thinking Mike was trying to spare her the effort, she happily hummed a tune while leisurely washing fruits on the kitchen counter. Tonight, all the servants in the villa were on holiday. I sat on the sofa, watching Lucy flaunt herself, feeling a sense of satisfaction. When I was dating Mike, Lucy would always pry into our relationship. At first, I was honest about it, but as she asked more and more detailed questions, I felt uncomfortable and sometimes deliberately misled her. I told her that Mike seemed cold, but had a warm heart, and we had crossed a certain line in our relationship. In reality, despite dating Mike for years, we had only kissed. Mike and I had an agreement that if I ever felt ready, I would give myself to him in that way. Before that, there were boundaries we wouldn't cross. It was an act of desperation stemming from childhood trauma, but little did I know it would lead to the consequences today. The more blatantly Lucy tried to seduce Mike, the more she drove him away. Mike loathed deceit with a passion, and if he found out Lucy was playing him for a fool, I smirked lightly. After Mike came out of the shower in his bathrobe, Lucy abandoned the half-sliced fruits and hurried into the bathroom to bathe and remove her makeup. Perhaps eager to be done with Mike as soon as possible, Lucy skipped her usual bath. As she used my bath products as if she owned the place, the steam-filled bathroom accentuated her attractive figure. Over the years, Lucy had relied on her looks to hop from one boyfriend to another, while Mike remained my one and only. She had mocked me for being rigid and not maximizing my advantages despite my beauty. Who would have thought that after dating so many men, she would come to pick the rare flower I had been guarding all this time? Where did she find the courage? I pondered dumbfounded. It wasn't until I remembered the names on the welcome posters at the wedding reception that it hit me 7 years ago. I had been forced to change my name to Lucy. I dated Mike and always went by the name Lucy. She, Lucy, married Mike openly and rightfully, while I, this Lucy, was just a shadow living in the dark. Tears turned into mist, sliding down from the corners of my eyes. It's ridiculous that I never really figured out who I was until my death. I recall my short and desolate life. From Nancy to Lucy. When I was 1 year old, my father died due to a work injury. My mother took my sister Mandy and all the compensation money and left for a distant place, leaving me to rely on my grandmother. I became the surplus one. From childhood to adulthood, I never experienced a parent's love or sibling affection. While others basked in their parents' love, I could only hold on to the only photo I had of my parents and dream of them. But what made me more uncomfortable than being called a wild child was the sticky look from all directions since I was 14, and the hands of different men sneaking into my bed in the middle of the night. A despicable fate that could be trampled by anyone, yet it gave birth to a flamboyant beauty. How ironic. If my grandmother hadn't struggled to get me into a boarding school, my life would have long been sullied. But my tuition fees had already burdened my grandmother, and the addition of boarding expenses made her back never straighten again. I studied hard to make my grandmother have a good life in her remaining years. After the college entrance examination, I received an acceptance letter from an Ivy League university. From the people absent from my life for 17 years, news came, and they appeared when I no longer needed them. It was then I found out that my mother had remarried 16 years ago to a big boss. My sister Mandy had already changed her name to Lucy. They cared for me and my grandmother, took my grandmother for a full-body checkup, and even arranged a tour for us. The excuse was to celebrate and compensate. I didn't want to go, but I couldn't resist my grandmother's eager eyes. She had been confined to a poor and backward mountain village for so many years, unaware of the vast world outside. I was still young, with plenty of opportunities ahead, but my grandmother. I struggled all night and finally agreed to go. During the trip, I witnessed a broader world and saw a satisfied smile on my grandmother's face, one she had never had before. The resentment towards my mother and sister in my heart dissipated unknowingly. But when I returned from the trip and saw my grandmother's medical report, my world collapsed. My beloved grandmother had a malignant tumor the size of a child's fist next to her heart. The surgery cost $300,000, which was an astronomical sum for my grandmother and me at the time. My mother found me in private and revealed her purpose for coming back to see me. She hoped I would change my name to Lucy and share life with my sister. In other words, my sister and I would attend this university together. However, my sister would take the limelight, reap the fame and fortune, and seek attention, while I would do the tiresome work of taking classes, exams, accumulating credit points, and obtaining certificates. 4 years later, the graduation certificate and degree with the name Lucy belonged to my sister. As a repayment, my sister covered all of my grandmother's hospital expenses during those 4 years. She also stated that when my sister needed me, I had to appear immediately, but disappear just as quickly when she didn't. Most importantly, I couldn't disrupt their current lives. When she said these words, she behaved elegantly with a smile on her face, but it cut my heart deeply. It turned out that the medical checkup for my grandmother was just to find a way to control me. The so-called sharing life was nothing but a hope for me to crawl at my sister's feet and pave the way for her with my blood and bones. I doubted the authenticity of the medical report and took my grandmother to another hospital for a re-examination. It was only after seeing the same diagnosis result that I gave up completely. For my grandmother, I changed my name and surname and became my sister's shadow. My mother kept her promise and arranged for my grandmother's surgery. We both got what we wanted. When Lucy finished bathing, she already smelled just like me. The fruits she left on the kitchen counter were sliced and arranged. Even my favorite sunlit rose was peeled and cut. Without a doubt, it was all Mike's doing, but I would never taste them again. Mike sat on the sofa, eyes closed with long, lush eyelashes covering the myriad of emotions in his eyes. Lucy picked up the fruit platter and walked over to Mike. Headache again? Her hand touched his forehead as she asked softly. I'm fine, Mike replied softly. Mike kept his thoughts to himself, never sharing his pains with anyone. In the past, I would have gently massaged his head until he stopped me, planting a kiss on the back of my hand. Lucy only knew that Mike had a migraine problem, but had no idea of what I had done for Mike. So, she calmly withdrew her hand, then picked up a piece of apple and handed it to Mike's lips. Hubby, eat some fruit, she smiled sweetly. Mike opened his eyes and gazed silently at her. Why are you looking at me? She looked back at him, puzzled. Mike shook his head. I've brushed my teeth. You eat it. Okay. Lucy sat next to him and started eating. After a while, she remembered something, held a grape in her mouth, half knelt, and leaned towards Mike's lips. Their lips touched, and Mike's eyebrows moved imperceptibly. "Open your mouth." She moved back slightly, murmuring unclearly. Mike remained still, his deep obsidian-like eyes gazing low, as if carefully examining whether the person he knew was still there beneath this facade. But in the end, he didn't open his mouth. Lucy was upset and threw the fruit plate before storming off to the bedroom. Mike sat alone on the couch for a while before finally going into the bedroom. As soon as he sat on the bed, Lucy moved closer to him. "Darling, a moment of intimacy is priceless," she said softly, implying something. Mike, tired, just told her to go to sleep early. Seeing Lucy's frustrated expression, I couldn't help but laugh. She tried to get close to Mike using my identity, not realizing he preferred to be called Honey. Mike wasn't very passionate, but that nickname had a special power over him. If she whispered Honey in his ear, he would do anything for her. Unfortunately, she didn't know this. She always said Mike came from nobility, and wasn't someone like me, a girl from the countryside, could dream of. But by using her old tactics, she hoped to win Mike over. It seemed like there would be many obstacles ahead. Would she try to share Mike with me once she realized she couldn't win him over? But I was already out of the picture. If she saw my dead body, how would she react? It was probably going to be quite interesting. After all, she could only choose between being innocent and being the CEO's wife. As Lucy slept in the morning, Mike sat by the bed, watching her for a long time, his expression unreadable. The next day, as Mandy, I had no phone or book, and had to stay close to Lucy. I felt bored and walked around the house in circles. It wasn't until 10 o'clock that Lucy finally woke up, yawned, and leisurely washed her face and brushed her teeth. She had breakfast and then went to the basement with a key in hand, clearly in a bad mood, looking like she wanted to confront me. When she opened the basement door and saw me, her face froze. She let out a piercing scream, then covered her mouth quickly to prevent anyone from hearing. As she cautiously approached me, checking for signs of life, I looked on, amused by her various reactions. It was truly entertaining to see her so shaken up. The air was filled not only with the scent of blood, but also with a faint odor of decay. After observing her, I turned to look at myself. My once vibrant skin was now marred by dark patches from soaking in blood, making me look like a stiff rag doll. The injury at the back of my head was horrific. I couldn't bear to watch anymore, so I floated out of the basement. "Mom, it's me. Can you come to the sister hotel room? I think I've caused some trouble. Can you come quickly? I'm scared," Lucy said, her voice trembling, tears running her exquisite makeup. I sat with my legs crossed, enjoying her distress. After Lucy calmed down, she locked the basement door and returned to the ground floor. Perhaps the wait had been too long and agonizing, so she turned on the TV. Her mind wasn't focused on the screen due to my sudden death. She kept glancing towards the door, restless. I, on the other hand, found it quite entertaining. An hour later, the doorbell rang. Lucy rushed to the door, tears falling before she even opened it. "Mom, the sister, she's dead," she stuttered. However, her words were cut short as she saw Mike outside. I was ecstatic to see Mike. Lucy, shocked, held back her tears. Mike entered the suite and asked what she had said about the sister. Lucy, trembling, involuntarily looked towards the direction of the basement. "What's there?" Mike took a step towards the basement. Lucy, panicked, grabbed Mike, nervously stopping him. She tried to explain it was about a character on TV. Lucy was crying and said she was scared to watch TV alone. Mike playfully scolded her and asked why she was crying over a TV show, mockingly wondering why she didn't watch at home on their bigger screen. After realizing her earring was missing, he had decided to check her luck at the hotel, and also handle the checkout process. Lucy avoided Mike's gaze and said she couldn't find it. Mike decided to drop the search and promised to buy her a new one. Just as he was about to speak, the doorbell rang again. Lucy, startled, opened the door to her mother. Lucy stood frozen in place, not moving. It was Mike who opened the door. "Who are you?" He looked at his mother-in-law with a puzzled expression. His mother-in-law stood there, subconsciously glancing at Lucy. "This is my distant aunt." "Aunt, this is my husband, Mike," Lucy quickly intervened. His mother instantly understood Lucy's role now. "Hello, I am Lucy's aunt," she greeted proactively. "Nice to meet you, Aunt," Mike beamed. I stood by, amused. Lucy, the orphan girl who had been in love with Mike all this time. Her mother was not qualified to attend yesterday's wedding banquet, so she didn't recognize Mike now. First, Lucy called her mom when she opened the door, and then someone knocked on the door claiming to be her mom. Where did the long-lost mom come from all of a sudden? With so many loopholes, no wonder Mike was suspicious. My gaze fell on her mother. In this drama that snatched away my marriage, what role did she play? Such a big thing, Do you think you can keep it from me? Her mother spoke sternly. Her mother's face turned red with anger. Lucy, do you know what you've done? These years, you enjoyed playing around, and I let you. You wanted to live a glamorous life, and I assisted you. You found studying hard. So you had Nancy attend classes and take exams for you, and I turned a blind eye. Even when your father handed the company over to you, you couldn't handle it well and continued to exploit her limitlessly. I said nothing. But you absolutely should not, under any circumstance, cause harm to her because of a man. Her words hit me like a thunderbolt, leaving me stunned. For all these years, she favored her older daughter, not expecting to have my existence in her heart. Absolutely bewildering for my entire family. Mom, I didn't mean to. I didn't want to kill her. Lucy covered her face, sobbing. Stop crying. Her mother scolded. The priority now is to call the police and clear. I can't call the police. Lucy interrupted her mother decisively, stiffening. Shut up. Her mother pinched her temples. Do you want to attract everyone around here? Lucy trembled, lowering her head. Why can't we call them? Explain. Her mother's face darkened, lowering her head even more. Lucy said, although both my sister and I are called Lucy, our life experiences are vastly different. Mike is familiar with the Lucy who is an orphan, not me at all. Calling the police would inevitably alert Mike. If he knew the truth, I wouldn't be able to stay by his side. Enraged, her mother slapped her. Are you that desperate for a man, Lucy? I am not desperate, but Mike is different. Lucy ignored the pain on her face, taking a couple of steps forward and grabbing her mother's hand. Do you know who Mike is? She continued. He is the CEO of the Mike Group, the one often seen in the news. Nancy, that dead girl, made a fool of all of us. Mom, do you know how much Mike's company is valued at? Before her mother could respond, Lucy eagerly replied, at least 80 billion. It could buy thousands of Dad's companies. Really? Her mother's eyes widened in shock. His family is so wealthy. Why would he choose Nancy? Who knows, maybe he has bad taste, Lucy muttered. While the insult wasn't directed at me, I found myself unfocused. To me, Mike was like the snow on a mountain peak, the flower on a branch, an existence in my life that was within reach, but not quite. Being with him was like the grandest dream I had ever had. Neither my mother nor I could understand why he wanted to marry me. The reasons were not important, the result was. After all, now I was Mike's wife. With this status, things like education and skills no longer mattered. What Mike liked was just this beautiful face of mine. As long as I put in the effort to bear his children, Mike would eventually be in our hands. Lucy eloquently painted a bright future for her mother. The picture was so enticing I, a dead person, was moved. Her mother was also swayed. So, you're suggesting we keep Nancy's death a secret? She asked. Lucy nodded vigorously. No surveillance in the room, as long as we quietly get rid of my sister. Her eyes were full of calculating light. After weighing the pros and cons, her mother tied it up, and then left. When she returned, she carried a huge suitcase. They bent my stiff body, stuffing it into the suitcase along with the baseball bat that was used to knock me out. Then, wearing disposable gloves, they painstakingly cleaned up the scene. Leaving the room, they drove for several miles, carried me together up the mountain, and finally threw me off the cliff. The mountain road was rugged and steep, but I remained unharmed, while the two of them had gained a few bruises. Looking into the abyss, I couldn't help but shudder. Thank goodness I had died early. If I fell from here and died, wouldn't it have been more tragic? In the midst of sighs, life seemed desolate. I've been friends with my sister for 7 years, but now it seems like she's just a total tool for me. Growing up, my mother didn't raise me, and in the end, she discarded me like garbage. As the saying goes, people die for wealth as birds die for food. I wonder how much of the vast wealth of the Liu family they can really enjoy after solving the big trouble that is me. After getting rid of me, Lucy limped back home. She looked disheveled, with wrinkled clothes, scraped knees, dust and blood stains on her skirt, and stains all over her shoes. Ignoring the gaze of the servants, she went straight upstairs. Once inside the bedroom, she impulsively kicked off her shoes, wanting to wash away the evidence. How did she get hurt? Suddenly, voices came from the balcony. It was Mike. Lucy was startled. You're back. She looked at Mike, answering his question with a non sequitur. Why do you look so disheveled? Mike walked up to her, about to lift her skirt to check her injuries. Lucy hastily stepped back, avoiding his hand. Mike froze in place. Just chased by a mad dog and accidentally fell, Lucy fabricated. Mike furrowed his brow, not saying anything more. I'm dirty. I'll go wash up. Lucy pretended to be calm as she walked into the bathroom. Barely locking the bathroom door, she aggressively rubbed her hair in frustration, looking like she was on the verge of a breakdown. Mike worked late and often didn't come home at night. Therefore, Lucy refused her mother's invitation and insisted on going back to her own home to bathe. The real reason was to see if I had any valuable items given by Mike, to dispose of my clothes and suitcase, erasing all traces of my existence. Over the years, apart from my mother, no one knew about Lucy and me sharing a life. Now that I'm dead, Lucy is eager to erase me, but her mind is not capable of handling such a difficult task. She doesn't realize that the more she rushes, the more likely she is to make a mistake. One misstep, and she'll be in deep trouble. Lucy endured the pain of her wet wounds and briskly finished her shower. As the sound of the hairdryer hummed, there was a knock on the bathroom door. Is something wrong? She opened the door, looking nervously at Mike standing outside. Without a word, Mike entered the bathroom and naturally took the hairdryer to help her dry her hair. The air was silent, and I remained silent too. Blurred in the dressing mirror, neither of us could read each other's expressions. Lucy excitedly rolled on the bed. Poor Lucy. She had finally come to the end of her schemes. These years, she and her mother had bribed the caregivers, thinking they had everything under control. Unbeknownst to them, I had successfully turned a new caregiver to my side. They still didn't know that our grandmother had passed away, but Mike and I did. My dear husband, is there anything else you'd like me to do? Lucy flirtatiously looked up at him. No, there's nothing else. Mike smiled as he ruffled her hair, but his eyes lacked the same smile. After Lucy calmed down, Mike picked up his phone to send a message. Curious, I leaned over to sneak a peek. He wrote, "Check on Madam's whereabouts today in detail." The response came quickly, "Okay. Also, check Madam's past." Pausing for a moment, as if finally making up his mind, he added, "Okay." Seeing this, my dark thoughts suddenly brightened. Well, it looks like things are finally going to change. Destiny tore a gap, revealing its sharp teeth to Lucy, but she remained oblivious. Holding the black card given by Mike, she indulged in a life of crazy shopping. It was dull and boring, just the final revelry, which left me emotionally indifferent. Most of the time, I treated myself as a kite, following Lucy wherever she went. If I got tired of playing, I'd just lie on her back. No longer bothering to deceive Lucy, Mike didn't even bother coming home anymore. But he still answered Lucy's calls. His words were casual, but his tone was considerate. He had Lucy perfectly under control. If he treated me the same way, I would be very upset. Fortunately, he treated another Lucy this way, not me. Unable to see Mike, I found myself inexplicably longing for him more and more. When I was alive, our relationship was unremarkable. Now that it's completely over, a sense of longing grew in my heart, slowly eroding my remaining willpower. When I saw Mike again, he was holding a stack of documents, sitting on the reception sofa downstairs, his distinguished face devoid of expression, like a dark sky before a storm. There was also a wooden box, over a meter long, on the tea table in front of him. Lucy had just returned from shopping, in a good mood. Seeing Mike, she smiled brightly like a chrysanthemum flower. The servant automatically took the bags from her and placed them on the long table by the wall. "Welcome back, dear husband. I missed you so much." Lucy twisted her waist, trying to rush into Mike's arms, but before she could reach him, the pile of documents stopped her. "Everyone, please leave." Mike's thin lips parted, giving orders to the servant. The servant nodded and obediently left for the front yard. Lucy maintained a forward-leaning position, looking embarrassed. She probably thought Mike wanted to do something intimate with her, which was why he dismissed everyone. My eyes landed on Mike's face. Judging by his micro-expressions, if I guessed right, Lucy wants to possess Mike, but now Mike probably wants her dead. I wanted to know. Mike glanced at the things Lucy bought and spoke leisurely. "Are you interested in me as a person? Or are you interested in my money?" His tone was light, but weighed heavily. Lucy's face paled. "Honey, what are you talking about?" I'm definitely more interested in you as a person." She stumbled over her words. After a moment of silence, Mike chuckled lightly. "Is that so?" His gaze was light and carefree. "Even if you liked my money. But I hope you like me as a person first, before falling for my money." "No, I prefer you as a person over your money." Lucy hurriedly expressed her loyalty. "Oh, you seem so easy to tease. Look at how scared you are." Mike's hand caressed Lucy's face, patting it gently, with a smile. His demeanor was frivolous and extravagant, like teasing a cat. It felt incredibly unfamiliar to me. Lucy forced a smile, but it looked worse than crying. "All right, I won't tease you anymore." Mike's gaze shifted to the wooden box on the tea table, saying, "Open the gift I got you." Lucy hesitated for a moment. "A gift? For me?" She faced the table, pale fingers opening the wooden box. "Annoying, even the gift is like this." The rest of her sentence was choked off. Inside the box was a blood-stained baseball bat, the baseball bat that Lucy used to knock me out. No, Lucy screamed and knocked over the wooden box. The box fell over, and the baseball bat inside rolled to her feet. This can't be true. This can't be. The color drained from Lucy's face. Come on, who are you really? Mike's eyes turned icy, like the god of death. Lucy shook a few times, biting her lip fiercely. Mike, what are you talking about? I'm your wife, Lucy. She forced a smile towards Mike. Looks like she's determined to deny everything to the death. Lucy. Mike's words were slow, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I know two Lucys. Which one are you? He tossed the document in his hand onto the table. There were two copies of the document, their trajectories overlapping due to inertia. Both covers bore the name Lucy, but one was labeled with a former name, Nancy, while the other was just Lucy. Take a look. Mike beckoned. Driven by curiosity, I floated over first. Lucy squeezed her fists, sitting motionless for a while before finally mustering the courage to open the file labeled Nancy. She probably hoped to find a loophole in it to save herself, but the moment she got rid of me, she was in a hopeless situation. She flipped through the pages of the file. I leaned on Lucy's shoulder, reviewing my past life. For the first 18 years, although my life was difficult and humble, at least I was myself. During the next 7 years entwined with Lucy, I often forgot who I was. But Mike accurately separated me from Lucy. It made me feel both surprised and grateful. Nancy. Seeing those familiar yet unfamiliar two words, my nose tingled with bitterness. I am Nancy. Yet to the world, I am known only as Lucy. The only person who knew who I really was and where I came from was my grandmother. She understood my exhaustion, knew my hardships, and protected me for half a lifetime. She never let me go until her death. I am her Nancy. Her one and only Nancy, but she didn't know that her Nancy had lost her name 7 years ago, and had become a puppet. After reading through my life story, Lucy looked soulless. She sat dejectedly in place, poking small holes in the paper with her fingertips. Suddenly, as if possessed, she ran out despite her appearance. 2 police officers in navy uniforms with badges emerged from the right side of the front door. Like gatekeepers, they blocked Lucy's escape route. Lucy stood frozen in place, like a piece of wood. Do you enjoy playing tricks? Mike spoke up. His tone was calm, but his eyes hinted at a storm brewing. Lucy trembled uncontrollably, unable to make a sound. The sun sank below the horizon, and darkness crept in through the window. The darkness enveloped everyone. No one bothered to turn on the lights. Mike was engulfed in darkness, like a lurking beast. Despite the danger, I couldn't help but want to get closer. I floated over to him, curled up on the couch, burying my head quietly in his arms. You do look so much like her, almost identical. Honestly, I didn't want to suspect my bedmate, but your flaws are just too many. Being 50 years old with a head full of white hair, tormented by illness, taking medication like meals, do you call this happiness? My Lucy bathes in tears every night, wishing she could transfer her pain and suffering to herself, and you. Mike let out a short chuckle. Same face, but such a huge difference. It's ridiculous, and the most absurd thing is that you impersonated her without knowing that her grandmother is no longer alive. Upon hearing this, Lucy was dumbfounded. Mike bent down and picked up a sealed envelope from the floor. Lucy, it's not your fault for being ignorant, but you shouldn't have messed with me. It's my fault for not recognizing you from the beginning. Since you destroyed what I cherished, then pay with your life. Lucy snapped out of her daze. No, I didn't kill Nancy. I just knocked her out. I never meant for her death to happen. It had nothing to do with me. Mike, please spare me. I really didn't kill her. Lucy urgently tried to defend herself, but Mike showed no interest in hearing it. She's yours now. He looked towards the door. The 2 police officers moved their wrists slightly and walked straight towards Lucy. No, I'm not going. I don't want to die. Lucy rushed towards Mike like a madwoman. The police officers quickly restrained her, putting a silver bracelet around her wrist. Mike, she's already dead. Why can't you see me as her? I don't mind being her shadow, please. Spare me. I don't want to die. Even while restrained, Lucy didn't stop begging. Do you think you deserve to replace her? Mike walked slowly towards Lucy, lifting her chin with his hand. Because of this face, I won't hurt you, but you owe her, and you will pay. His eyes flashed with endless killing intent, like a deity of hell. Lucy was so terrified by Mike's demeanor that her pleas got stuck in her throat. Remember to take good care of her for me. Mike gestured with his hand. The police didn't hesitate, and dragged away Lucy violently, taking away the evidence on the ground. The villa was empty and silent, as Mike slowly closed his eyes. His usually strong and unbending posture seemed to bow down. A complex mix of emotions flooded my heart. After standing rooted to the spot for a while, I turned around with difficulty, but there was no trace of Lucy in sight. Suddenly, it dawned on me that the prohibition had failed. Mike ascended the stairs in the dark of night. As he passed the long table, a thought came to my mind, and I drifted into the bedroom. As expected, there was no sign of Lucy ever being in the room. Instead, the clothes and suitcase she left behind had reappeared. Mike was in the study on the 3rd floor. Perhaps to avoid the glare, he didn't turn on the overhead light, only the desk lamp. Several photo frames were placed on the table, all photos of me and Mike. I had shadowed Lucy all my life, never standing openly in the sunlight. Besides wedding photos, these were the only ones with Mike. There was a file on the table, with a stack of photos. Mike flipped through them under the light of the lamp. They were all photos of me. The sizes and angles varied, some from surveillance, some candid shots, and numerous ID photos. Very few were taken facing the camera directly. For the first half of my life, I had no opportunity for photos, and in the latter half, I had no right. I hardly remembered these photos. Lucy and I looked exactly the same. So for 7 years, I mimicked her in every possible way to avoid raising suspicions. Even Mother often confused us, but strangely, there wasn't a single photo of Lucy among them. After looking at the photos on the table, Mike's hand reached for the drawer handle, but he hesitated for a while. I could see his fingers trembling slightly, as if there was a flood raging inside. The drawer was finally pulled open. Inside, there was another stack of photos. I couldn't bear to look past a glance. They were also my photos, post-mortem photos, mutilated by Lucy and Mother, then baptized by the wilderness. Seeing my own wretched state, I couldn't help but feel nauseous. Unfortunately, my insides were empty, and there was nothing to throw up. But Mike showed no repulsion. His slender, fair fingers gently traced over my decaying features. A drop of water landed on the photo paper. I looked up in disbelief. Tears glistened at the corners of Mike's eyes, tear streaks still visible on his face. After knowing him for over 3 years, it was the first time I had seen him cry. After days apart, he looked worn out. There were dark shadows under his eyes, like a proud sun eroded by dark clouds. Under the endless night sky, Mike sat in his dimly lit room, lost in thought about me. My heart felt like it had been rubbed raw by sandpaper, overwhelmed by a surge of heartache. In the days after my death, I only thought about when my sister would get her comeuppance. I didn't consider how hard it would be for Mike to know I was gone. I only held on to hatred, but I forgot that beyond hate, there was also love in this world. The next day, Mike went to the police station and took custody of my body. Despite the dire circumstances, it was all for the better. Before cremation, Mike arranged for the best mortician to tidy up my appearance. Then he held a grand farewell banquet for me. He summarized my life on a single page. Though brief, it unequivocally declared Nancy's existence to the world. I was satisfied with this treatment. In my lonely life, and a silent death, being remembered in this way was good enough. On the day of the trial, I followed Mike to court. Manslaughter and premeditated murder, though just one word apart, carried vastly different sentencing implications. The physical evidence of Lucy's crime against me was conclusive, coupled with the ample evidence chain of her past exploitation and enslavement of me, led to a life sentence. Mother was charged with harboring a criminal, destroying evidence, abandonment, and others, and received 20 years in prison on multiple counts. I knew Mike had a hand in this, but I didn't understand the meaning of this punishment until I saw a document in Mike's study, records of Lucy and Mother's daily lives in prison, accompanied by photos. Their cellmates were extraordinarily kind, showering them with 365-degree greetings around the clock. Sleepless nights, unstoppable storms, unable to withstand the torment, they resorted to a hunger strike, but were saved by prison authorities using premium resources. They destroyed half of my life. In the end, the pain they inflicted on me was repaid to them by fate in a different way. From then on, the two worlds never met again, which was just as well. It was a bright, sunny day on the day of my burial. The sky was a clear, azure blue, without a single cloud for miles. Mike wore a black suit and held a large bouquet of red baby's breath to bid me farewell. I saw my gravestone. The largest letters on it read Wife Nancy, with Mike's name beside it. After half a lifetime wasted, I had finally shed the name Lucy completely. I was content. Can I call you Nancy? Mike half crouched in front of the grave, his fair, long fingers caressing my name. Hearing the name Nancy, I was stunned. I remember when we first met, you said you only had one relative in this world, your grandmother. After falling in love with you, I wanted to be your family too. I am dull and uninteresting. I was afraid you wouldn't like me, afraid you would let go of my hand. Luckily, you've been by my side these past few years. I'm not good at expressing emotions, but I know I love you and want to be with you until we're old. After your grandmother passed away, I decided to keep you by my side through marriage. I wanted you to know that I'm also your family, that when your grandmother's gone, I'll still be here to protect you. Do you know how nervous I was when I proposed to you? I was afraid you'd say no, afraid you wouldn't want me. The moment you said yes was the happiest moment of my life. I thought I would spend the rest of my life with you, but I never thought it would harm you. Nancy, it was my fault for not protecting you. I'm sorry, Mike prattled on in front of my grave. I had never seen him talk so much. In my impression, Mike has always been deep and introverted. He likes to be alone, keeping all his thoughts hidden behind a neutral face, as if there is a layer of shell wrapped around his heart. But at this moment, he opened up his heart and showed all his tenderness and vulnerability to Nancy. Even though he knew it was a luxury, he still asked her firmly if in the next life, she would still hold his hand without wavering. His voice was soft and gentle, like a breeze that could dissipate at any moment. But the silence was deafening, and his eyes dimmed inch by inch. My heart trembled slightly, as if something was about to burst out. The feeling grew stronger, almost devouring my heart. I looked down blankly, and my lower body had turned into mist, returning to the sky and earth. I realized that I was about to disappear soon, but I couldn't bear to take my eyes off Mike. He leaned against a tombstone, his hand resting on it before dropping heavily. My heart was filled with grief. In the next moment, I was completely engulfed by despair and darkness. And then, I opened my eyes, reborn in a happy home where my parents were alive, and my grandparents were loving and carefree. As the only daughter, I was talented since childhood and received all the love and affection. After estimating my college entrance exam scores, I smiled and wrote down the name of a school on my application form. I remembered there was a handsome young man there, who had crossed oceans of people just for me. On the day of entering university, I met him at the school gate. He walked alone through the crowd with a cold demeanor, ignoring the bustling scenery around us. I purposely tripped in front of him. He was about to brush past me when he saw my face and stopped in his tracks. I met his eyes without hesitation. He slung his bag onto his shoulder and reached out his hand to me, with clean, slender, and graceful fingers. At that moment, all my uncertainties found the strongest answer. I firmly clasped his hand. From then on, one touch was a lifetime.